right. Welcome into the half, everybody. My name is Aaron Montgomery, and you can find me at oursuccessgroup.com. This fine gentleman sitting next to me here is Mr. Erich Campbell, and you can find him over at erichcampbell.com. That's ERICH, by the way, for anybody that might not know. I don't know why you wouldn't. That rock you're living under is pretty big, but Erich,
Well, if you're
how the heck
here,
are
you're
you, sir?
hopefully already here, right?
Yeah.
If you're here with us, you probably know us already.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doing all right, doing all right. It's been a busy, kind of trying week. That happens for a lot of us, but lots of stuff going on. And honestly, as we know, there's lots of stuff going on in the world, so it's a lot of hard stuff to hear. And I just want to say my heart goes out to all the folks who are dealing with a harder time than what I'm dealing with. I mean, not to do that comparison thing, but part of the gratitude is knowing also that you've got a lot going for you and that other people have it hard and to feel for them. So
Yeah.
I'd like to say that. I know that's kind of a bummer to start on, but with so much going on in the world, I wanted to say, we feel for you folks who are dealing with a lot out there
Yeah.
around the world. And, that's sometimes hard to hear, but we have to realize, keeps going on.
Yep. Just put it out there, like I said. Just
Yeah. Just put it out there.
send a lot of love and light out to people, and
Yeah.
do what you can. So,
Yep.
yeah, and so let's. Ramona says, "Where have you two
Yep.
been?" Yeah,
Yep.
you're
Right.
actually on time. Come on,
We are. We're here.
skin of our teeth on time, but we're here. And then Mike says, episode
Yep.
100. Right? We didn't even plan anything, think about it, to be honest
No,
with you.
not
So,
really. This is just a
um,
thing that we do. It just comes naturally from what we already do. So yeah, but episode 100, man, like congratulations. I know it hasn't been all of
yeah.
it with both of us, but happy to have everybody here who's here and happy to be here with you, man. It's been great.
Yeah. Yep. Mike also said, so I guess that's 50 whole hours. There you go. 50 whole hours of
Yep.
Aaron, Eric, and the half. And you guys really, that, that's like Eric was saying. I appreciate everybody
Yeah.
being here, chiming in, sharing, people like Barb checking in. Hello. And yeah. So, well, Eric, as we've kind of been trying to do this year, right? The idea here is and again, it's not a format change. There's still no outline. There never will be. This
No.
is really about the communication, just, I don't know, what the fellowshipping, right? Just being here
Yeah.
to
Just being here.
chat and talk, and wherever the conversation takes us, we go. But to then help it kind of keep moving along and whatnot, we said, okay, well, because we found ourselves a lot of times just kind of talking about what had happened just about a half hour ago on Two Regular Guys.
Indeed.
And to me, I was like, yeah, this is what I'd really love to do. Is Eric sits behind the scenes over there, right? His camera is off. He's pushing the buttons and making things happen, but he's always got a fantastic perspective, and it's occasionally he'll bring that into the comments. But to be able to get a deeper perspective from Eric, in fact, we talked a little bit about some stuff after the show was over with me, you, and Terry, just kind of a debrief there. So
We usually do.
I want to, I want to hear your kind of, and it doesn't have to be about what we talked about at the end of the show. You can go there if you want, but just your kind of perspective on what we just talked about with niche markets.
So yeah, if you guys didn't tune in, the Trailer Guys episode this morning was about niche markets. It's something we talk about quite a lot, though I think we take different angles on it a little bit every time, and I'm kind of glad for that, especially because we have other people who chime in. But yeah, niche markets are really a thing. We can debate on whether it's niche markets or niche markets, but whatever it is marketing to a smaller sub-segment, let's say, of the population. I'll say the few things that always stick out that I think are universal is that we make it clear that when you focus on everyone, you focus on no one. That's not really a focus. Focus has to have a target. Targeting. If your target market is everyone, that's no target. And if your target product is everything, your specialty is everything, that's no specialty. So honestly, that's the one good thing to start with, because like, hey, niche markets are good because it gives you focus. But one of the things that I really loved that came up during the show, and I just want to kind of reiterate this one, because it was true for me and my experience in decorating, is that doing something that other shops consider hard or that they don't want to do, especially when you see an immediate need for it, when people are in your shop with their hands in their pockets, grabbing their wallet, they are ready to pay, they have opened the wallet and they just want the thing, especially when it happens more than once. So when you have the same markets continually doing this stuff, I think it makes sense just to say, hey, doing that hard thing and setting yourself up and learning it is worthwhile. And honestly, once you start learning it, it can be something that's really useful. We both had Champagne Engraving, who was on as a as a listener who jumped on and said they engrave everything that you can lock down. Like your coconuts was the one thing that we joked around about, but they engrave on just about anything that you can engrave. And the thing I'll talk about, I mean, Terry said he screen printed hats. As much as he joked around that I would have said you need to embroider them, and of course I'm not a big fan of screen hats, but hey, I'm an embroiderer, of course I'm not. But they have their place. Hats have their place. We did a lot of heat printing on hats when it made sense. But he said once he got used to it, other printers in his region weren't willing to print on hats because it was a pain to get them flat and figure them out. But once he figured out how to get it done, he was printing them all the time, and he was upselling everybody who came in on hats. And it was something that other people weren't doing, and it opened up a large market for him. And I'm going to say the same thing happened with us at Black Duck with patches. Small run patches back in the day when it first kind of happened, people would come with patches and everybody's like, yeah, we hire that out to, any of the number of, I won't name names, but there's a number of emblem companies onshore, offshore, a ton of companies that all they do, or at least the primary market that they have is making patches and emblems and stuff like that. And back in the day, especially like the minimums were 1,000 back early on, or 500 or 1,000 patches, and someone needs 12 for a club. Nobody would do that. So we started doing some of that stuff. We would do patches. We learned how to make them on the embroidery machines. I figured out a way to use, wash away substrates to make that happen pretty easily in the shop. And we did small run patches. And once we started doing that, it opened up this whole market. First of doing more police, fire, and the rest stuff that you might expect, because we would both kind of prototype the originals, do a few pieces to get them started, and then we would do larger orders for them when we got it all sorted. And then that's how we got into movies and TV. So if you guys have seen me, bang on about, doing movies and TV stuff, invariably what that really was, that came out of doing patches, because people came to us from the movies and TV and heard that we were patch people, right? That was the big deal. They heard that we were willing to do a few patches, and for a movie, they don't need 500 of anything. They need 10 of them, or when they do, it's 500 individual pieces for a crowd of people that all supposed to be from different groups. So we came out doing that, and it became a profit center for us, because once we did that, we got things like wrap gifts and normal decorating out of it that wasn't super hard, that wasn't difficult, on top of the difficult stuff we did. We charged handsomely for the difficult stuff. And then we had a bunch of this normal stuff, this, like I said, wrap gifts and crew shirts and the kind of stuff that's bread and butter for decorators, for custom decorators, that would come in on the back of that difficult stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So I feel like people kind of look at both niche marketing and working on difficult substrates and stuff and say, hey, that sounds like extra work, or it's too fine of a group, or I don't want to just do this specialty stuff that's difficult, whatever it is. And then I'm like, all right, cool. But trust me, once you develop the ability to say, hey, I'm the person with those skills, having those skills lets them trust you with the staple work, with the kind of stuff that you would do all the time. And it just also brings people to your door who may otherwise not have bothered with you, or who might have already had somebody else to do the other staple work. But once they come to you and they're getting, they're making that special trip to make sure they get the one thing that you do the best, the likelihood that they will consolidate that with you, as long as, especially in a world where prices are similar, where other, like, honestly, if we're all doing commodity kind of decoration, which we all do some of it, no matter how specialty we are, we have to understand that, yes, there are points of differentiation, but to the outside observer, we're similar. Our shops are similar and have similar abilities. The phrase I've been using over and over teaching so far this year is, access to a machine and software isn't enough. That doesn't make you special. I hate to say that. That sounds mean. That's the mean way of saying it. The nice way of saying it is, you yourself are the difference, and you can provide the unique selling perspective and the unique proposition for value. It's you that makes it, not the machine, not the software. But that's the nicer way to put it.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And like I said, I mentioned this on Two Regular Guys. There was a young lady in my seminar, and I asked, do you know why people buy from you? And that's a hard question, right? We know what they buy from us. And I could go tell you that I sell this many X in mugs, hats, patches, whatever it is, right? But why do people buy from you? And that's what you talked about there, Eric. That can be unique, and not only is it unique, but most likely, in fact, I would be so bold as to say I can almost guarantee it has everything to do with you, right? and who you are.
I'm almost certain it does. I mean, honestly, Yes, there is more to it, because if you have a very unique
Hmm.
ability, like let's say, and this is a wild one that's just off the top of my head, if you do embossing, it's super rare that someone does that. If you're over there like cutting dies and doing fabric embossing, it might be a really tiny market. I actually saw it coming back again. I was shocked. I saw a
Hmm.
denim jacket with a big embossed logo on it, and I about lost myself, because it's like, the Wayback Machine is turned on.
Yeah.
But if you're the person who does that, maybe access to the machine makes enough, just because it is so niche. It is so far down the long tail that maybe you've got a very unique ability in house. I can see that happening. That can be true. But even then, in a world where we can shop online, if someone has the lead time to spend and doesn't have to be local or doesn't want to talk to somebody face to face, then it still comes down to your creativity or your interaction or the way that you present yourself or the way that you do business. There's going
Yeah.
to be something else about you that makes you the candidate. And I think that it's that whole package that really brings people back to you, even when you're in a niche. Um, and admittedly, the other thing we talked about after the show, and this is maybe once again, I guess I'm a little salty. I had a rough week, so I think I'm saltier this week than I want to be. But I've seen some people also drill into a niche so deeply, and a niche that's not paying off for too long, and I say, okay, niche marketing is to help you focus when you're too unfocused, but there can be such a thing as to excluding capabilities that you
Yeah.
have from being utilized because you are so deep in a niche that's not working out. There is a moment to say, it's not just you not throwing the effort out there, but that the pond's been fished. Those exist too.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people bring that up, and I don't want to say that there's no negatives ever to niche marketing. You can go so deep into a niche that there just aren't enough customers.
Yeah.
That is absolutely possible to do, especially if you keep yourself to, let's say, local marketing.
Yeah.
If only 10 people in your township play pickleball and all you do is pickleball related shirts, you're going to have a hard day unless you either market further out to people who might be outside of it, or unless you pick up other sporting events or something else that's in the realm of other people doing it, or you find out that, hey, it's field hockey in your area that is more popular.
Yeah.
There is a moment where you can niche down too far. I think that can happen, and it's okay to say that without saying that it doesn't throw out niche marketing,
Yeah.
because marketing to a niche doesn't mean you don't take on other work, but you can go to the point where if you put all your eggs into the basket of a very, very tiny niche, and it's not really where you're marketing, or you're not marketing to that niche effectively, or it's if you're trying to keep really local and it's not in your locality, that can be hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Well,
can be hard.
and we talked a little bit about this when we were talking with Terry,
Sure.
and kind of, because here's my take on that,
Yeah.
right? Is I think it's what's happening there is we want to simplify things. We have a tendency to
Sure.
want to, let's deal with the things as opposed to what's the bigger picture of it, right? So
Sure. Sure.
you think that your passion is that thing, but there's something else beyond that. And like you said, Eric, if it's pickleball and there's only 10 people in your area that are into pickleball, that'd be another new sport.
An even rarer sport.
Even rare sport. I'm into tickleball, not pickleball. But so like
Sure.
you said, but you've got, at a certain level, you've got to understand, like you said, you've got the data, right? You understand that this is not working in that regard. This doesn't mean that you have to just forsake what you're trying to
No.
do. It just
No.
means you have to try new things, right? And you have to
Yeah.
maybe get outside of your market a little bit. You have to be able to be willing to expand, or get closer to the customers and find out what their needs are ultimately, right? You might think their needs are for t-shirts, but maybe what they really need is sponsorship billboards, or right. I
Yeah.
mean,
It's
it could
possible.
be a lot more than what it is that you're seeing on the surface. But and I think that's what gets us in trouble, is it,
Sure.
like you said, that's where it becomes, niche markets can become a negative thing for us, because we want to stay on that superficial level, and we really
Yeah.
need to actually get deeper into what it truly means to support a niche. So
Well, I think it's like these two big fears that people have.
mm,
Either everybody wants to serve everyone, and so they're afraid to market to a niche because they think they're cutting out business.
mhm.
That's one fear that I think we address that
Yep.
one all the time. But the other one is, I don't want to dilute myself too much, and so I don't want to offer things to other people. I want to stay just in my niche.
Yeah.
And I think both of these can be kind of argued for and against. You can talk about the pros and cons, but for me, it's more like this, right? as decorators, as custom decorators, if you're bringing in jobs that people are handling and you're doing it custom, you're able to service anyone no matter who you're marketing to. I
Hmm.
think that niche marketing is a useful tool for you to help focus a message.
Yeah.
You can market into multiple niches at the same time. That is totally viable and people do it. You can have different front facing versions of your company, especially online, where we can have different front facing stores and websites
Yeah.
that that cater specifically to a certain culture, each one in that particular segment. People often isolate on a niche that they know very well because it's something they love. But some of us have very, like I said, very particularly niche hobbies where they're so small that we have to understand that, yes, there might be an underserved market, but there probably isn't $1 million in each one of these markets. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can be in a really long tail market and it can be viable, it can be useful, it can be profitable,
Hmm.
but maybe not where. I mean, we had we had the we had the news, the screen printing mag news from Adrian, and she talked about $6 million shops. Local pickleball may not be your $6 million shop idea by itself. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty fair thing to say, and I know I'm picking on pickleball because it's a funny name. It's more like
I
it's
say
like a
nothing's
comedy
more
name.
popular than pickleball right now, but that's a
Yeah, I
whole
know.
different story.
Hey, we go back to lawn darts. the local lawn dart championship, illegal in 50 states. But suffice it to say, like if we have something that's super niche, and the joke I made was actually I was going after my fellow nerds, and I'm sorry to do this to my fellow nerds, but like the guy who opens up the retro gaming shop, but he's super into like one obscure console. It's like I have the world's leading store of Sega Saturn games, and you're like,
Yeah.
cool. That is one old niche console that
Yeah.
didn't do well at market when it sold. And that's all you do. You're
Yeah.
like, man, there are certain people who are definitely going to pay for what you have because that you are the only person doing
Yeah.
what they want. But then is that your $5 million shop? Probably not.
Correct.
I mean,
Yeah.
it would be great. The thing is, you can still use those projects. Let's say that we do
Well,
something
yeah, you
super
can be the
niche,
go-to for that. Yeah.
be the go-to for that. And in fact, you can still show those projects. And I'll say in the apparel decoration market, let's put it this way. I have weird designs that I like. I make little Viking Age designs. They do not sell to a ton of people. The people who want them desperately want them. I've shown designs that I have that are not for sale, and people desperately want those designs that are not for sale, even though someone else could have made them by now.
Yeah.
They could have had somebody recreate them, and I could do very little because a lot of them are based on historical sources.
Sure.
But that's the thing. Yeah, Commodore 64. Don't get me
64.
started. That was my big hand down computer. I ran a Commodore 64 forever because I had a
Nice.
old
I had a VIC
retro
20.
hand me down. Loved it. Yeah, VIC
I had a
20.
VIC 20. Yeah. Even precursor to the
Yep,
64.
I've
So
used one too. I had family who gave us some cool hand-me-down computers, and those
that's
were
awesome.
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 But yeah,
All right.
hey, I love retro computers. But here's the thing: the Commodore guy, the guy who makes Commodore stuff only, probably has, he might have a captured market, but if he keeps it local to a storefront and doesn't market online and doesn't market into retro computing, that's a small market, and you're going to have to
Yeah.
work on that if you want to grow it. But here's the thing: as a decorator, I talked about the Viking Age designs. It's totally cool for me to show those because the thing is they're going to look at cool quality embroidery. They're going to look at the garment that I do too. And so he's like, oh, wow, that's a cool design. Can you do it for
Yeah.
X thing? Like I want to do Renaissance stuff or Baroque stuff. And they go, oh, historical designs becomes the larger category. And you can go kind of from, and we'll put it in kind of pseudo-scientific terms. We can go from the species and then go up to kind of like the family of the thing. We go up
Yeah.
from the individual species and say, okay, what's the larger group? Eventually we go up to say, all right, I did Viking Age designs, but somebody else goes, hey, cool, I like that. Do you do Renaissance stuff? And I could go, oh, well, show me the sources. Maybe I don't know as much, but I broaden out. And then people go, oh, here's a guy who is detail oriented, who can look at a historical photo and then reproduce something. Now what I do is reproductions, and it could go out to even further. In fact, I've done some of that work myself. I digitized a bunch of stuff for a guy who was doing auto interiors from really early limousines. And I did
Okay.
trim work for him. And the funny thing is, I believe that came out of me doing kind of these detailed reproduction pieces. And then he's like, okay, if I give you a measured drawing, you're somebody who's going to pay attention to it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
What did I start in doing that? And I didn't end up, going into that market and trying to go harder at it. But I could see that you could go from historical work to reproduction car interiors to car interior stuff for custom cars. And you'd be in this like direct chain that would bring you out into a wider niche that
Yeah.
had more people in it, coming from sharing the original piece that I did and sharing
Yeah.
the stuff that I worked on the way. Starting with the niche doesn't mean staying in the niche. And it doesn't mean Also, the other way around, you don't necessarily want to just go, nope, I just do, it's Vikings only. That's what I do, is everything that I do. You can do that, but as a custom decorator, I think you probably, that's a little too limiting to go
Yeah.
completely in on one niche, unless you hit it. I mean, every once in a while you hit a niche where it has enough for you, but I think a lot of us aren't going to get that from
Yeah.
our personal passion project.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wish you were a tad more passionate about this, Eric, but I'm just kidding. This is awesome. I mean, minutes of fantastic perspective that I think is really good. Let's share Barb's comment here real quick. I hadn't
Yes,
read it yet,
please.
but I'm sure it's relevant. I think you can cross niche in sports and other areas. For example, usually a technique or setup for a sport will work for bridal,
Hmm.
like sprint shirts, bridal squad shirts, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
good. Yeah. And
Oh
that's what
yeah.
you were talking about, right? That kind of like growth from, but it comes back to the deeper, in the case of the example you were sharing, the deeper I care about getting it right.
Yes.
And I'm
Yeah.
showing that in the thing that I'm passionate about in the reproductions.
Yeah.
But how does that grow into even more? And maybe, so I don't know. I'm trying to
No,
make
I think it's
make it
true.
work.
Well, and that's the thing. Funny enough, that's like us with the patches. We started with patches for a local motorcycle group, and it was like a police riding club. So it's kind of like a motorcycle club, but those terms are loaded. So I'll just say
Yeah.
Riders Club. It was a Riders Club for police that we originally did. We did some other motorcycle clubs as well. But we started doing some of those, and then it caught on that we would do a small number of patches. It was difficult. And then the movie people came in. Then we started doing movie stuff. And we did wild stuff out of that movie segment where it was like, I remember for Independence Day, their big reboot, the scene sadly got cut. We printed these huge flags. We screen printed flags on the floor of our shop with like, we tiled it up like 4 giant screens, the biggest screens we could get, printing these huge flags that were hanging down off of buildings. We were willing to take that on, but then we did a bunch of other stuff for the company. We did the weird
Yeah.
stuff and we did all the rap gifts, but that all came out of that. And the funny thing is, it fed back into itself where we did small run patches and then did movie patches and then back out to normal patchwork. Because once they had seen the small run patches, we had people to contact us from like military, police, and fire who had what we would consider very normal patch orders, where once the design work was done, we were farming them all out to big emblem shops like
Yeah.
you would back in the day. So it's kind of funny. It came full circle
Yeah.
and also included us. Once you do a patch design for someone, the likelihood they're going to want you to modify that design and put it on a shirt is pretty high.
Yeah.
So we end up where that brought us in. And I actually like Barb's comment about this, because we did a bunch of that bridal stuff, and you would say, okay, a regular custom place doing bridal stuff, the difference between putting a name on a uniform shirt and putting a name and a monogram on a dress shirt that's going to be used for brides dressing up. You guys know that they wear these big oversized men's shirts while they're getting their makeup done. We did lots of those, and it went from that to those started getting big full back names, which were very much in the same way that we would set up for, funny enough, like Barb said, like you would set up for a varsity jacket. We
Yeah.
have these full shoulder to shoulder names that were going on those shirts.
Huh.
So it's the skills overlap, and if you show your ability to do any of these things, and also you just show the samples of what you do, the kind of work that you're good at, people will find that and extrapolate it to what they need out of you too.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they're
I like that.
desperate for a certain kind of thing and they're like, oh, hey, wow, they did this big, back name on a shirt. Well, I want that, but I want it for bridal and I want it to be fancy. They can come to you with that.
Yeah.
And like I said, we were not a traditional monogramming shop, but have I done a load of monogramming? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And funny enough, I've done some historically based monograms because I was somebody who did that kind of reproduction work sometimes. It's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. Ramona says bridal wear can upcharge a lot. Brides have mega budgets.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. All right. Well, Eric, that was fantastic. But we cannot miss. I want to know weekly wins. So,
Yeah, man.
Eric, you put me on the spot last week. Do I get to put you on the spot this week, or was it last week? I don't know. It's all.
Yeah, I
running
think I
together
put you
right
on the spot. You can put me on the
I-
spot. I'm going to admit.
I'll go again if you need me to, though.
No, I'll go, but I'll just say
Okay.
this: rough week. Had a rough
Okay.
week in my neck of the woods.
But
I think,
that's kind of the point of this, though, Eric. Just if you don't mind me interrupting you real quick.
yeah, do it.
Because for everybody, right there, even in rough weeks, even in those times, there's a win in there. But you got to be willing to go find it, because to get out of that rough week, you've got to go find the wins, right? You got to have that spark to help you grow. And Eric is a really good example of this. So Go ahead, Eric. Sorry.
This one's hard. This one's hard for me. I'm going to admit that I had a
Yeah.
rough week, and I don't feel real proud of myself this week. That is the
Yeah.
truth.
That's okay.
But whether or not I feel happy with my output this week, and I definitely don't. I was accepted as somebody going to a particular event, and I'm not going to announce everything yet because it's not all out of the the stages of just
Not
signing up for it.
finalized. Yep. Yep. I
Not
get it.
finalized, but had somebody who wanted me to be at an event because I'm someone that they considered worthwhile to be at this event to share my wisdom.
There you
And
go.
that's whether I feel that correctly or not. I'll admit
Yeah.
this to you guys right now. I'm not feeling this. I don't feel good about myself right now today. I'm having a rough week. I don't feel good. But at the same time, I got to stop and go, all right, this group of people thinks that I have something to share with my community that was worthwhile for them to invest in me. So
Yeah.
that's a win. And I
Yeah.
hadn't thought about that till you said that, Aaron. So I am definitely on the spot. I feel uncomfortable even doing this.
Yeah. Well,
And
good.
admitting how hard this week has been.
I'm proud of you, man.
I'm
That's
grateful.
awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Get used to being uncomfortable. I think that's something we all got to do, and it's not easy.
Hey, you're
I hear
watching it
you.
live, folks.
There you
That's
go.
uncomfortable with that discussion, but you lean in. That's the
There you
best way
go.
we can do is lean in.
All right. Marianne says a trip to catch the boat in Galveston cruise. That's another
Galveston,
win.
nice,
Yeah. Good job.
nice, good going.
All right. I will jump in then. So
Jump in.
my win was just coming back from the APA event, the Awards and Personalization event.
Yes.
I didn't get an exact head count, but the room was pretty big and it was pretty full. And I did a presentation and that I was really proud of.
Nice.
And I was a little worried because I originally designed the presentation to be one of those 80, 90-minute presentations. And I'm like, I got to cut more stuff, but I just did it. And I left actually because I'm like, well, I can't cut that because that's important to it.
Mhm.
It was dead on 60 minutes and people like didn't have questions. And it wasn't like they were just like, I don't get it. Like there was like, oh my God, that was great. Everybody came up and said that, but they didn't have any questions. So I felt like I did a good job of relaying the information. So thank you.
Nicely done. Nicely done, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nah, I think I saw a picture you have sharing some folks there from that one. So yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I only got the one. Todd actually took some pictures, so I need to get those from him.
Some of those up, but yeah,
it was cool. So,
glad to hear
and then
it,
got to meet. I mean, just got to meet up with people that I've known, meet some new people, all that kind of stuff. So it was really great. So, all right, what other wins do you guys have out there? And Ramona says that's a win, Eric, and it's okay to not feel it; it will come. So there you go.
Hey, I'll say this: being somebody who is, as much as we are public, I mean, it's not like we have massive, gigantic Mr. Beast viewerships, but being someone that's public, I'm happy to at least say, hard as it is for me to do that, sharing that with you folks is something that's worthwhile too.
Yeah.
We ought to be more public about the normal struggles of like mental health and stuff that we all deal with. And I think that we all deal with it. And especially dudes, we don't always talk about this stuff about not feeling right. I think we got to do that because we lose too many of ourselves. We lose too many of our brothers. So guys, talk about this stuff with people and admit it. It's all right.
Yeah.
It's not just you. There's somebody out there having a rough one.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And all right.
And at the end of that, right. And we'll go ahead and get us to the next little phase here real quick, but
the last little phase for a minute,
the last little phase here, but just to kind of, right. And at the end of the day, the thing that we can do for each other, right. Is, just show up, right. Just be when you can be the love and light, when you need help, ask for it. Right. And at the end of the day, I think if we can do that and just focus on that, then, ultimately we'll be able to get through to the other side. When there's challenges, we'll be able to support people through the other side on the other end of it. So, and if you're something that you're struggling with out there, don't be afraid to ask for it. So speaking of that, what are you guys struggling with out there? Challenges, Q&A, what's going on?
We have like a minute, but if you got something you want to ask, we can try.
Yeah, we'll see if we can do it. Mike says, this stuff doesn't always go perfect. That's for sure. Right. And, you're very welcome. So thank you for, and Eric, I do want to just say thank you to you for doing that, being vulnerable enough to say those things. So thank you.
It's tough because people see you smiling on camera all the time. They kind of assume that everything's going awesome all the time for everybody. Not always the case. And also we all have tough news that comes out in our life. Things happen in the real world to us. It's real. You gotta know that stuff.
Yep. Ms. Layla says very important information regarding mental health. Thank you. Very,
Yeah.
very true. Good.
Hey, if you got somebody you love today, tell them.
Yep.
Tell somebody now when you have a chance. Help the people you can and be there when you can. But hey, ask for help when you need it.
Yep, for sure. All right. On that note, Eric, thank you, sir.
Take care of each other, guys.
Yep. That last note that Eric had right there, key. Go out and tell somebody you care about them.